Hey guys, welcome to my workshop. Merry Christmas. It's that time of year again. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can make these really cool, big or small Christmas snowflakes. So stick around. Alright, so to begin this project, you're going to want to determine how big do you want to make these snowflakes. I'm going to go with about 16 inches in diameter, so I'm going to begin by cutting some pieces of wood 1.5 inches wide, only about by 1/2 inch thick. So now that I got 4 of these, I'm going to cut 4 of them 16 inches long, which is the diameter of this snowflake. Be sure to hold on to the scraps because we're going to need them later. Okay, so now that we've got all of those cut, this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. So since we're going to actually have these crisscrossed like this, and then the two behind it like this, obviously you can tell this is going to be extremely thick going on the wall. It's just really not going to look all that good. So what we're going to do is do a half lap. And what that is, we're going to cut halfway into one, half into the other. So when we set these two together, that'll actually be flat. We're going to do that twice, and then the second one will just be turned. So to start with that, what we're going to want to do is, and I think this is the easiest way, just measure to where you can get it pretty close to in the middle all the way around. Put a little mark here on that board, and then we're just going to duplicate the same on all 3 of these. So now here at our table saw, we're going to want to make sure we lower the blade down to reach halfway up into that board, and to get a halfway mark I just put a line there, and I'm going to eyeball this until I am at that line. Okay, so before we make these cuts, what we want to do is continue these lines as a reference line onto this side, because as we run this through the saw, we're going to want to be able to see where these are. And so just to do that, I go follow my line there and make another tick mark, and I'm going to repeat the same thing on all of the boards. So what we're going to do now is going to take these apart, put a little bit of glue on there, and then I'm going to clamp them up and let them hold while we cut the other little pieces we need. So while that's drying, we're going to want to cut some more stock. Now, we did have some scrap left over, and this is where you can kind of make a creative decision. You can use the same size stock for the other juxtaposing pieces that are going to kind of create that snowflake look, but I'm going to go a little different. I had some other scraps laying around that are actually about 1/4 inch thick, so I'm going to end up with a 1 inch by 1/4 inch piece of wood that I'm going to use for all those juxtaposing pieces. And now I'm going to cut about 12 of them 4 inches long. So next what we're going to want to do is we're going to take 4 of the 12 and just set those aside, and then all of the other ones we're going to want to cut a 45-degree angle. Now you could do this using your miter saw, but because these are so small, you're going to risk actually having a little bit of a kickback. So I'm going to choose to use this really cheap box cutting jig and a pull saw. Just cut them all just like that, putting that corner right up to the edge so that from this point to there is 4 inches. Okay, so to set these in place, we're going to take one of these, we're going to use just the straight ends, and they're going to set just like that. Now, to make these look right, what we're going to do is make sure that the distance from here to here is the same. So we're probably looking at about 1.25 inches. So right there is where we're going to go. I'm going to put a little line so I can kind of eyeball this back. Put a little dab of glue there. Line these back up. And then you could use a clamp and just clamp that, but I'm going to use a couple pin nails so that I can then get it nice and square. Alright, and then we'll just repeat the process for all 3 sides. Okay, so this next part is going to be just a little tricky because we're dealing with angles. I'm going to measure up from the end 3 1/4. Put a little tick mark. That's going to be where the points are going to come together. So what we're trying to do is something like this. Now, to get this nice good angle, take a triangle or carpenter square and use that. Line up your triangle here, and then eyeball this along with the edge, and it should be pretty good. And before you move it, put a little line, and now we can apply our glue. Now just repeat the same process on all sides. So here's the fun part. Lay the angle piece down, take your other piece, flip it upside down so that you don't see the pin nails, and turn it. And it should sit right in there, nice and perfect. You're going to want to look at it, make sure everything looks good to what you want to do. And then we're going to go ahead and glue these together. And then we're going to clamp these together. We're going to let that dry before we're moving on to the funnest part. We want all this wood glue to dry before we paint it. So the next step is going to be, now that it's all dry, give it a light sand with 220 grit sandpaper just to knock off any of the edges that had some of the splinters when we cut it. And then I'm going to paint it using the technique that I showed in a previous video on how to make aged paint. I'm going to do an undercoat of brown and then have the overtone as white. And you can check out the technique on how to do that by looking up the video, a couple videos behind, or it'll be linked at the end of this video. Alright guys, there we have it. The snowflake is done. Really excited about how it turned out, and I can't be more pleased. It actually looks like a snowflake to me. Now you can make this any size you want. Like I said in the video, you can make it smaller, you can make it bigger. Just have fun and be sure to enjoy it. Now I did add a little piece of string and super glued it to the back so that it gives me something to be able to hang it off of something. But you don't have to do that either. You can use this as a mantelpiece or whatever you really want to do. But I hope you enjoyed this project. I do have some more Christmas projects coming up, so be on the lookout for those videos. But thank you for watching this video. I'll see you next time right here in the workshop, and have a very Merry Christmas.